thanks very much, Tracy and Mario, for getting Imperial and Scandium into the mix. In answer to Fred Kozak's, before I get into the project and who we are, in actual fact, Scandium is a transition metal. It's really not one of the rare earths. It's compatible, so it likes to mix up with all sorts of things, particularly iron. So it comes out of your magma early on, whereas all the rare earths are incompatible. They prefer to stay in the melt, and they're moved along things like thorium and uranium. So in actual fact, Scandium probably classifies more as a transition metal, like with lithium and titanium and zirconium. Just for a matter of clarification there. Our forward-looking statements and our disclaimer statement. I'll be saying a few things about our projections on moving the project forward. So really, we're focused on Scandium. We do have a rare earth signature related to the mineralization. The particular advantage of the mineralization that we've traced at our Crater Lake project is it contains very, very low quantities of uranium and thorium, and I think that relates to the fact that it is compatible. The uranium and thorium gets pushed away from the mineralization that we have. So we view that the project development will provide us with a near-term sustainable cash flow. It's going to be a very, very small operation. The market is quite small. It seems to be growing. There's a lot of interest, particularly with the recent announcement by Rio Tinto and at their titanium operation in Quebec that they are going to recover Scandium from their waste streams. And they also have the affiliation with the Alcan aluminum division, so they're able to make Scandium aluminum alloys, and I'll run through that a little later. It is all the mineralization we've defined is at surface. It will be open pittable, quite a large system. Our view is that we want to be the price disruptor. That's how you break in as a new player, how you create market share in a growing market. And we're located in Quebec, which is the aluminum capital of Canada. So what is Scandium? It's used as a hardener and strengthener of aluminum alloys. It's heat and corrosion resistant. It really has lightweight, high temperature applications in automotive, aerospace, fuel cells, defense sectors. You can imagine the casing of an electric motor of an EV builds up quite a bit of a temperature. Certain alloys, if you exceed a certain critical temperature, the actual alloy weakens, whereas Scandium is able to maintain its strength characteristics even at high temperatures in the order of 700 degrees C or higher. Really, we're unlike the rare earths, which are electronics and magnets. Scandium is really has a much broader manufacturing footprint in that it's used as an input for the platforms and all those various sectors. It's really our drive is to reduce the carbon footprint of greenhouse gas emissions, extend EV range by lightening up the frames as well. So the issue has been supply. In addition to being unreliable, generally from Russia and China, the prices have been unsustainable, I think, for broader involvement for low margin manufacturers such as the automotive industry. We view that the tipping point for broader consumption use will be in the order of $1,250 US per kilogram. Now, what you have to realize that the market is slated to grow. I saw that Bloomberg, it's currently the consumption area is about 35 tons per year. Bloomberg estimates that it could be as high as 1,800 tons of scandium oxide per year by 2035. Boston Consulting for the Quebec government, when they announced a financing agreement with the Rio Tinto to help them build their demonstration plant for scandium recovery, estimates that it's about 700 tons by 2025. So all the projections appear to indicate that the market will grow in very short order. These are the players, mostly Australian. We're talking about laterites, which basically is weathered rock, and they get residually enriched. We're truly the only primary hard rock deposit, and we're the only one certainly in North America Scandium, NioCorp in Nebraska has very, very low quantities of scandium. Let's see if I can change this up here. Pointer options. Okay. Very, very low quantities of scandium. Yeah, but they're using a very high price in their financial model, so it looks, it looks quite interesting for them. This gives an idea of the increase. The black bars are kind of like the strength characteristics and megapascals, the strength characteristics of conventional alloys. And if you add very, very small quantities, as low as 0.4%, the red bar indicates a significant increase in the strength of the alloys themselves. And more importantly is the ones that the scandium has the greatest strengthening effect on happens to be the areas of broader consumption use, particularly in the aerospace, for wing structures, the automotive industry, for basically fuselages and planes, and then in the defense industry. So what are the cost innovators? The drivers, Dieselgate. All the automotive manufacturers, particularly the Europeans, were going down the route of diesel engines as a means to reduce greenhouse gases. We know that Dieselgate hit in September of 2015, and they had to reinvent the wheel. So they realized that the only way that they could get themselves under the incoming EU emission standards was to go full EV. And we know that Volkswagen alone is dropping about $81 billion from now to 2023 to deliver 20 new all-electric vehicles in their product line. Now, so because it's a strengthener and a lightweighter, you can use it for spot welding, chassis parts, wheels, and suspension components. So by lightening up an EV, you can get the same effect in terms of increasing range as you could by changing your battery chemistries. And for automotive manufacturers, they're more comfortable with, we don't know motors. That's changing, and they're building motors. Tesla's a good case in point. But they know the heavy manufacturing. They know that if they have a material that will lighten up their chassis, they'll get greater range. They're all for it. The other area is lightweighting, of course, is just as important for combustion engines and improving fuel efficiency and lowering greenhouse gases. And if you take a look at the projections on EV use, as much as 7,500 tons of scandium oxide per year, just for EVs alone, are potentially could potentially be consumed in just the EV space. It's important. It's also an important component for lightweighting of airframes. Airbus has patents on what they call scalmalloy, which is a scandium, aluminum, magnesium alloy for both welding material. So they're using welds now to replace rivets and just in assembling the plane. And that has the effect of lowering the weight by about 20%. And it also has an equal savings in terms of fuel consumption over the operating life, in the order of about $10 to $15 million NPV over the operating life of a plane. Another really exciting area, and that's the one that we're really pursuing, and certainly in our R&D initiatives and the outreach with manufacturers and in the defense sector, is scandium aluminum alloy in powder form as an input into laser melt 3D printing. Laser melt 3D printing is, in terms of what it can do, is makes complex parts. It can make parts that don't need to be machined before they're inputted into the platform. It's a big weight savings. You get a nice strong part. You can put cooling channels, manufacture cooling channels within the part itself. And Boeing estimates that they could save about $3 million US per aircraft by using an aspect of 3D printing in the manufacture of their planes. So pretty exciting. And this gives you an idea of the breadth of parts that you can manufacture using 3D printing. It's also, again, on the theme of carbon offsets and reducing of greenhouse gas emissions. As much as 80% of the US population lives on the coastal region. And if they were to undertake much broader offshore wind power production, that basically it would double the current electric consumption energy needs in the United States by having offshore wind turbines. These are huge. That's huge equipment. You see on the left-hand side top. People are standing by just the head of that's a 12 megawatt offshore wind turbine. And I saw that Vestas, the European manufacturer, is now launching a 15 megawatts. So these things are getting to be huge. Not only huge, but they're also very heavy. That nacelle that you see is 600 tons. So any opportunity to lessen the weight of all of the componentry and put less stress on your towers. I mean, those things are 260 meters high. Obviously, it's required. Also, you get much more efficient wind offshore, further offshore than you currently have with offshore wind. Their production, there's a manufacturer in Europe that's looking at floating GPS-located floating platforms of these wind turbines. And they need a light corrosion-resistant material, strong corrosion material to support those platforms. Scandium aluminum certainly fits the bill. We know that Quebec is the aluminum sector of Quebec. It produces 90% of Canada's aluminum and 60% of North America's aluminum. There are significant fiscal advantages for the development and the processing and third order processing of materials, metal materials in the province. The driver here is there's so much aluminum production because of the very low hydroelectric rates in the province, in the order of about 3 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Can't be beat. It's the lowest rates in the world. So there's our project. We're up in northeastern Quebec. We're about 95 kilometers off the end of the Trans-Labrador Highway. We're near hydroelectric power, road, rail, as well as these red dots illustrate to you the major manufacturers of aluminum along the north shore of the St. Lawrence. So natural synergies between a product that strengthens aluminum and aluminum manufacturing itself. So there are two routes to get product to market, either direct, once we get into the Trans-Labrador Highway system, to get it down directly by road to Baie-Comeau, where there's Reynolds, the older Reynolds aluminum manufacturer, or road and then rail down to Sept-Îles, where there's a huge aluminum plant in Sept-Îles, the Alouette plant. So that's what it looks like. I said that Scandium is compatible. It particularly likes to mix up with iron. So commonly you're going to find Scandium associated with iron-rich minerals that tend to be magnetic. So that is basically a magnetic map that shows this nice onion skin, undeformed onion skin, intrusive complex. It's really related to rocks that contain the Strange Lake heavy rare earth element deposit, which I discovered in when I ran Quest, and the Voisey's Bay nickel copper mine on the east coast of Labrador. Just to put it in the context, that little magnetic structure is 6 kilometers in diameter. The orange and red that you see on this image is the host magnetic horizon that hosts the scandium and rare earth mineralization. The complex is 6 kilometers in diameter. We've now traced the magnetic horizon that contains the scandium for about 14 kilometers in strike. And we've done a lot of surface work. We've done testing. And just today, we announced that we're launching a $2 million exploration program to drive the project to not only coming out with a 43-101 resource estimate, but we also intend to deliver a PEA to the market, just to give an idea of order of magnitude financial market. Just to put into context, this is the target we intend to undertake the resource drilling this coming winter. This is about 1 kilometer in strike length, and we've drilled it over drill core lengths in the order of 75 to about 150 meters in length, true width about 120 meters. So we're talking about a large target, and that's where our focus is. And to give you an idea, here's the intersections. Just to put it into context, about 200 ppm scandium is considered economic threshold. you can see that we have significant strike lengths across the host horizon. If one assumes about an $1,870 US per ounce gold equivalent, those kinds of numbers represent, in terms of scandium, using a $1,250 US per kilogram. Those intersection grades are in the order of 6 to 11 grams per ton gold equivalent. So if we were a gold company and we were reporting 120, 150 meters core lengths of those kinds of grades, we wouldn't be a 22-cent stock right now. This is the drill pattern. We intend to drill about 3,000 meters to test the entire length. Really, to satisfy a 25-year financial model, we only have to define about 10 million tons of resource grade to satisfy that model. So we're about to mobilize crews. We're likely going to complete the drilling by sometimes in April. Our intention is to deliver on a resource estimate, 43101 compliant resource estimate in May. We're also completing the metallurgy, which is we've been working on now for several years. And we're in the process of finding a solution to recover the scandium effectively, cost-effective method. And it so happens that byproduct bulk rare earth concentrate could be potentially available as part of the operation. We can recover an amount of the zirconium, and we do actually have some titanium that can be recoverable. We're not going to estimate the value contribution of those byproduct materials, but it's nice to know that they're potentially there for us to reduce our operating expense for the operation. So the PEA itself should be delivered sometimes end of the mid-year or beginning of the third quarter of 2021. So really our drive is we want to be the North American scandium supplier. As a matter of fact, we want to go a little bit further downstream. We don't think that the business of scandium production makes money by delivering oxide. We want to go a little bit further downstream, and it's our intention to produce what they call master alloy, which is 2%, an alloy of 2% scandium and 98% aluminum. And that's the base material that all the manufacturers use for their different categories and classification specifications of scandium aluminum alloy. So we're in the process of doing this. We're doing strategic R&D and platform initiatives, both with industry and academia, which we should be in a position to launch fairly soon. We want to create some market pull, and certainly the Rio Tinto announcement in May is there. So all of a sudden there will be a supplier of scandium aluminum to the market. It'll only develop a need profile on a market pull for that material. We want to be the price leader, so we're going to be open pittable. We're only talking a mining operation that'll be producing about between 350 and 400,000 tons of material per year. Because the scandium is related to magnetic minerals, we can actually do magnetic concentration on site. Most of the heavy hydro metallurgical processing will be done on south near one of the aluminum centers where cheap hydro is available and a very able workforce as well and better infrastructure. We want to be the reliable supplier. We're developing really part of our plan is developing a recycling plan whereby we ensure quality assurance of material that we take back and then redeliver to clients via blockchain and digital tagging of the material that we put out into the market. So really, this speaks perfectly to what the Quebec government wants to see for critical metal developments in the province, which is promoting a circular economy. So in terms of our advantages, we've got a large high-grade surface scandium and rare earth resource inventory. I think our mineral inventory, non-43101 compliant, is in the order of about 30 to 40 million tons. And like I said earlier, we only need 10 million of 43101 resource to satisfy a 25-year production model. It'll be a very small footprint, about 300,000 to 400,000 tons of mining per year. Because of the low content of uranium and thorium, it has very low, or mitigates the environmental impact on the project. The mineralization to date is showing to be processed using simple metallurgy, low overhead and projected expenses. I think will allow us to be the price leader in the space. We're in a mining-friendly jurisdiction. We're in aluminum capital of Canada. We've got very strong relationships, long-term relationships with local Indigenous communities. And we have a management and board of people that have been in the critical metal space and have a record of discovery and development in that area. And as was mentioned by Fred earlier, I think the big driver is the U.S. trade war. Certainly, COVID and the crimping of personal protection equipment for our healthcare workers has really shown that the global supply chain model is failed, and that I think there's going to be a drive for the establishment of domestic or continent-based supply chains, and certainly. Us being Quebec and next door to one of the biggest consumers of this potential material would be to our net advantage. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Merci. Just like to comment that recently, Peter, we saw the IPG, the Imperial Mining stock, rise with good volume. I think you did a financing. You announced a $2 million exploration program on Crater Lake. Am I correct?
Yeah, we've did 2 private placements, one that we closed in December, middle of December, and another one we just closed in January. Plus, I mean, we've got a lot of warrants in the 5.5 cent to 11 cent range that are also being exercised right now as we speak. Actually, we're seeing more money incoming from exercising warrants than we're spending on operations. So we've got a very, very strong working capital position. We've got about $2.85 million of working capital available to us. And our projection on the exploration program, 2 PEA is about $2 million. So we're in pretty good shape financially.
Oh, excellent. Wow. Awesome. Okay, very good. Now for the question session, I'm going to leave the mic to Frederick. Frederick, I know you have some question for each of the presenter. And if any member of the panel after Frederick have some question, Frederick will guide you to the right person, and then after we'll fall over with the panel talking about and introducing some political level question. Thank you very much, Frederick. To you.
Okay, thank you, Mario. So we'll go with you first, Peter. Just a couple of quick questions for you. One is a little bit in the area of sensitivity around any issues in this part of Quebec with the Indigenous peoples, and talk to us a little bit about how you've worked with them and managed that process, please.
Well, first of all, Fred, thank you for the question. Our property, as well as the Strange Lake Heavy Rare Earth Element project, is located into James Bay in northeastern Quebec land. So all the land claims were settled as a result of that agreement between the Quebec federal governments and the Indigenous communities. And there's a fairly transparent protocol with which to seek out and get approvals for our working permits. So that's pretty well ironed out. And that the relationship that I've built really was when we took Strange Lake right through to pre-feasibility. We had to do a lot of community consultation. And so I developed some very, very strong relationships. I mean, most of my career has been in the northern part of the country, where you're more apt to meet up with Indigenous communities. And I found it important to have them as supporting stakeholders in anything that we do. So I think that'll be to our net advantage.
That's great, thank you. Just one more question, maybe a little bit on the blue sky side. As you're moving through to PEA, have you given any thought to what sort of a timeline might be for you to scope out when you might see first production from this asset?
Yeah, the PEA is likely going to be delivered, like I said, in July or August. And if assuming a full funding envelope right through the feasibility, I think we'll be in a position by late 2024, early 2025 to deliver first product.